Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today, it's been a crazy week here on YouTube. For those of you who don't know, Linus Tech Tips, his channels were actually removed from YouTube. The removal was instigated by a hacker attack on his channels, where people had subverted the channel, been able to get access to it, and they started doing some things. And 3 of his channels were taken down. Linus Tech Tips with 15.3 million subscribers on that channel. Tech Linked, that has 1.8 million subscribers, and Tech Quickie, which has 4.2 million subscribers. So there's a lot of work and effort from his corporate structure, where he has all of his different YouTube channels in play. And it really is one of those things that even for a tech giant like Linus Tech Tips to be able to get someone have breach his security procedures makes it pretty clear that all of us need to have a discussion about this and figure out some preventative measures for making sure we're protected. So today what I've done is I've invited a couple of guests, a couple of friends of mine who are just really knowledgeable in the tech and digital online security space, so that we can talk about some of these issues. You guys can ask some questions. So let's bring them on in here. These are my 2 friends, Linus Tech and Shannon Morse. Liron, can you tell the people out there a little bit about yourself, my friend?
I can. Oh, I should. Okay. This is going to be so much fun. So hi, my name is Linus Tech. I run a tech YouTube channel. I focus on what I like to call the unsexy side of technology, because it's all about connectivity. It's all about security, which is pretty apt today. And super excited to be having this conversation with you guys. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Shannon, could you do the same, please? Let these wonderful people here and in the replay know who you are.
Hi, I am Shannon Morse, and you can call me Snubs on the internet. I'm a huge weeb, but I also am super obsessed with hacking and information security and educating people. My previous history was working on a channel called Hack5, which is almost to 1 million subscribers. Woohoo! I'm so excited. And now I started running my own channel where I talk to consumers about how you don't have to sacrifice your security and privacy online to have the conveniences of this decade's technology. So it's super fun to share that information, and I want everybody to find security as a friendly thing, not a scary thing.
Well, thank you, first of all, both of you, for being here today. I really appreciate on short notice you guys stopping by here and trying to help people have some better understandings, give some people some tools to actually be prepared if they happen to face a situation, or hopefully protect themselves a little bit better, so they maybe will never have to face a situation like this. Speaking of Linus Tech Tips, for those of you who may know me through the Filmora saga, where I had been trying to see if we could get Filmora to change its stance on the lifetime license issues. Linus Tech Tips was really instrumental in helping that move forward. I don't know how many of you follow Linus, but he's a very big channel, and he actually brought up our issue and mentioned it on his channel, which really helped spread awareness to what it was we were doing. Let me play a quick snippet of what they did for us, so you can hear what a great channel this is and how helpful they are in trying to make sure that creators are taken care of responsibly.
Software company Wondershare recently launched the newest version of their video editing software, Filmora 12, and alongside it, they brought another new feature that lifetime license users now get to pay. I have never heard of Filmora.
Right. But YouTuber Daniel Batal has. You noticed when he tried to log in to the new version of the software, he was prompted to pay for a license to use the new software, despite having a lifetime license that promised all software updates are completely free. In emails to Batal, the company clarified that they are calling new versions of software upgrades instead of updates. And that their license agreement only covered updates. Wow, that is the douchiest thing ever. I don't know if that word isn't that bad, right? Wow.
I'm pretty sure you can say douche.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Software.
Yeah, I think we're allowed to say. I think with the new standards, I think we found out that douche is okay for as long as we don't overuse it. So, I mean, this is how important that channel was to me, because I think they are Linus is so dialed into what's going on in the creator economy and really trying to stand up for people who feel that they might be slighted, because he's been in that situation himself. So he put up a video the other day. His channel all of a sudden was just taken down. He put up a video explaining what happened the next day, because thankfully they were able to recover the channel within about a 24-hour, little longer period, which is a lot faster than we've seen some other channels get their channels recovered, which is something we'll talk about too. Access to the means of getting that kind of response. But what he started talking about was, he was a guy where a lot of people said, like, Linus, you're a tech channel. 2FA, you're always talking about. How is it that you were able to get, these people were able to take your channels over like that? You're supposed to be the guy. So how did it happen? So I want to kind of start at the top of this funnel here of this discussion. Let me throw it to you first, Leron. And this is a very vague question, but when we think about hackers, when we're seeing people hacking channels, can you give us your impression of who these people are and why they're trying to hack channels?
Yes. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. It's all about the money, the money, the money. Channels get sold on the dark web for lots of money. It depends if it's a big channel with lots of audiences, as we've seen with Linus's audience. They're instantly able to pull up a live stream. They're able to con people into paying those bitcoins in the hope of Elon Musk giving them double their money back. The biggest thing that I have to say about all of this is people say that common sense. We all use common sense. We would never get hacked. I would never click on that link. I would never go and give them Bitcoin. I would never. And that is the one thing. Shannon said it earlier before we were getting on about this whole victim blaming situation. In the industry, we kind of say there's only two types of people: those that have been hacked and those that will. Right? It's just a matter of time. And you're going to your question of who these people are. These people are preying on the fact that they're going to send out gazillions and gazillions of messages and gazillions of emails, and eventually somebody's going to be caught off guard, unaware, in a situation where they're not really focused. They're getting on a plane or in the queue to pick up their kids from school, or just in a rush. It's just somewhere they're not really focused, and they're going to get hit with this saying, hey, let's just click on this link. And they do such a good job with social engineering to get you to do and take an action. They're really masters at this. And it's just a matter of time. And this is literally what we've seen here. These guys do it because they can. They get away with it because they're typically in non-extradition countries that really cybercrime is kind of so low on the totem pole of the problems that they have to deal with. So they know they're going to get away with it, and they're going to make a whole bunch of money in a short period of time. So basically, why not?
Yeah, and I just want to speak to that quickly when you were mentioning Elon Musk. For anyone who's not aware, what happened with Linus's channels and what we've seen happen with many other channels is that it seems to be a lot of them recently have been pushing around cryptocurrency scams, where what they did was they changed the name of Linus's channels to Tesla, and they started streaming what looked like a podcast of Elon Musk explaining the advantages of crypto. And then that in and of itself wasn't what started triggering big problems on YouTube. It was actually that they had these fake stats and links down in the description and down below that they were telling people along the way that for every Bitcoin that they sent in, that they guaranteed they'd be able to double it. And it was an absolute scam. It was complete nonsense. But when they put it out on these channels in front of millions and millions of people, they're only looking for a certain percentage of people to go, oh, and then see if they can snag them. Because I've always felt that the key to this thing was, the heart of it is opportunity and vulnerability. Shannon, when you think about people like this, of who they are, why they're doing it, is this the kind of thing like, is this one scam, or are they a small group of people that we can go, if we could just stop that one thing happening, then we're good. We can take that one step and suddenly we're protected.
I wish it was that easy, honestly. I really, really do. And I don't think it's just like a little group of people that are hacking all of these different accounts. I think it is people that are seeing these opportunities and wanting to gain some really quick cash, or maybe even they just want some clout and they choose to go ahead and try and hack these accounts. Oftentimes, I've noticed that just based on like some news that I have seen previously about other hacks, not even having to do with YouTube, but you'll see different attackers will engage on like dark web forums or hacker forums and try to figure out like what accounts are most vulnerable, which ones are being hacked more often, and they will use that information to try to gain access to those accounts. So you oftentimes don't really know like who these people are, where they're coming from. In the case of these YouTube attacks, it's not political, although political is usually one of the main definitions for an attack. This one is most definitely going to be monetary, like Liren said. So given that it might be anybody, there's really no way that you can look at like one IP address and be like, oh, it must be this person. We must ban that IP address from getting on YouTube or getting on Gmail or being able to access these accounts. So maybe in the future, like YouTube could look into kind of comparing all the different attacks that are happening to all these different accounts. Maybe they can see something that's happening with all of them, a similarity between all of them, and try to define who that attacker is. But really, it would be like trying to shoot fish in a barrel. Is that the saying? Yeah. It would be so hard. It would be so hard to try to figure out like where all of the attacks are coming from.
Just to add to what Shannon is saying, we need to remember that the old days of hacking are different to the new days of hacking. So in the olden days, inverted commas, you needed to be able to write code. You needed to be able to understand networking. You needed to be able to understand protocols and what this virus is doing, this antivirus, and how you get around it. Those days, yes, they definitely still exist, and there's certainly groups of professional hackers who this is what they do for a living. But we've got this new age of software as a service. Very much like you can go online right now and sign up for a Netflix or a Hulu or any other service, give them your credit card details, and they'll bill you on a monthly basis. Same thing can happen on the dark web. You can find these sites which offer hacking as a service. You go and you literally say, hey, I'd like this virus, please. I'd like it to look like this, please. Can you make it green and yellow and call it this? And you press save and you have a virus. I mean, that's the insanity of this. This is why we're actually seeing so much more of this happening right now, because of the ability to anybody to literally go there and buy these services. You no longer have to understand Linux and understand code and understand all the complicated stuff. It's like a wizard. Next, finish, check out. You're done.
So it's getting easier and it's a moving target at the same time.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I believe both Liren and I have also like discussed these software services in detail. Like I've done tutorials on the Hack5 channel on like how to use these for legitimate use cases, like to study a network and audit a network and make sure you don't have like malicious clients chilling on your Wi-Fi or anything like that. But like there's hardware tools. Disclaimer, Hack5 sells some. And there's also software services, and a lot of those services are free. So anybody could download them. Like you could download them on your home computer right now and try to figure out like, how can I use this to audit my network? A lot of them can be used for malicious purposes too. However, I don't recommend that.
Well, let me start right here. So anybody, because listen, what I know about cybersecurity and protecting your online presence is literally I could fit it in not my StreamYard cup, which is quite large, but like a thimble, because I take the basic precautions and I want to talk about some of those, but specifically here in this case, because this is something we've been seeing happen a lot, because I want to make sure we talk about what's happened, talk about potential threats, give people information to protect themselves, and then talk about some of the things YouTube is doing now and what we think they could be doing better moving forward in the future. So in this case, can either one of you who wants to take it, can you explain to us how it was that someone was able to attack 3 massive channels, tech channels, for a guy who really you think would have all the security and protection in the world and take control of those channels?
I'll take it.
Shannon, go with it.
So it was weird because if you looked on Twitter, a lot of people were making assumptions about how the attack happened. And I was just like silent and waiting until we had confirmation from one of them. And luckily, Linus did make that video and he explained like step by step how exactly this attack happened. So he showed us basically what happened, and it had everything to do with downloading something malicious and having an attacker steal the session cookie from their PC or their browser and basically duplicate that session onto the attacker's computer, which allowed them to log into the session without a username, without a password, without two-factor authentication, and get access to everything that they could edit on that YouTube account as if they were an admin, as if they actually had administrative privileges. So a session cookie is basically how, you know, when you log into like Facebook or Twitter or even StreamYard or YouTube or whatever, and you stay logged in, even if you click around on the website, that's because you have a session, and that session is allowing you to stay logged in. It makes things very convenient. That's how the internet works. Like, that's just, it's a convenience factor. A lot of banks will log you out after 5-10 minutes or something. That's because they're expiring that session and making you log back in. That's smart for security. Social media, YouTube, etc., they don't want to do that to you because that would make it less convenient and it would push people off the platform, basically. They don't want to do that to you.
Is that one of the things that we're fighting right now, Shannon? Is it one of the things that we're fighting is the fact that these social media platforms are trying to make the user experience so smooth and easy and not constantly getting signed out and signed back in, that, they're worried about disrupting that, do you think? Or is there potential of that? Do you have any take on that at all? I personally feel like I saw how crazy people got when YouTube made a simple change of just no longer presenting the publicly facing dislike count, and people lost their minds. I know. And I'm like, oh my God, if they started making people sign in at every other moment, I can only imagine. But is that, what are your thoughts on that?
Don't get me started on that whole thing, that whole debacle. Yeah, I do have thoughts. I think that session IDs can be authenticated in different ways to protect yourself when you are logged in, and you don't necessarily have to make it less convenient for the user. You can write a session ID so that it is authenticated based on your IP address or your location, or it's keeps you authenticated until you shut down the computer, or it keeps you authenticated until your browser closes. Like, you can have a session cookie work that way so that there's still the convenience while you are using the computer, but the next time you come back to it, you do have to re-log in. Or maybe you could authenticate it so that the only thing you need is maybe a push token to your phone or something like that, like you would normally get with two-factor authentication. So you can have it be more protected from like the server side, so that they make your session cookies a little bit more protected and still make it user friendly for social media, because that's how social media is built. The moment you start introducing more steps for a user, the more complicated it gets. The less income the social platform is going to be bringing in, because less users are going to use it, and that's just kind of the way that the world is.
Yeah. Well, let me talk to you for a second here, Liron. This is the way that Linus Tech Tips was taken down is something that I've seen several channels have the same issue. I saw Tom Nash run into a very similar situation. What they did was pretty smart. Like, when I say it, and I don't want to say smart in a good way, but it's learning to find the path of least resistance, finding opportunity and vulnerability. All they did was they did a great job of presenting themselves in an email as a potential sponsor. And they put themselves into their email saying, hey, we'd like to work with you. This is, we love your channel. It looked very professional, apparently, which I've seen many of these before. And what it is they have what looks to be a PDF, like, here, click and check out the terms of what we're willing to pay you and how we'd like to integrate. And I think it was Colton, one of the guys who works for LTT, all he did was open it up and went to look at the terms, open the PDF up. And of course, it wasn't a PDF. It was malware that went right in. And apparently, correct me where I'm wrong here, Liron, take this one. What happens when you open up something? Is it copying your browser? Is it getting into your browser's preferences? What's it doing?
Okay, so the big mistake, and this is the first thing that people should be looking at changing right now, is that if you're on a Windows computer, you should be able to go into your file manager, and there's a little button there that says Show File Extensions, and you want to enable that. What does that mean? It means that when you get a file, even though the icon looks like a PDF icon, it will show you that it's whatever the file name is, .pdf, .scr. And that is what I suspect happened here. .scr is essentially the old Windows screensaver files. It's an executable program. And what typically happened, or what I'm guessing happened in this case, it seems to be fit that pattern, is that when he double-clicked on that file to see the terms of the contract or whatever, however they kind of packaged it, what happened was it launched, but it didn't do anything. So there was nothing on the screen. Nothing actually happened. He thought, okay, must be a corrupt file. No big deal. I'll probably reply to them in the morning, close down the browser, or close everything down, because nothing actually happened visually. What did happen was something called a headless browser. And what is a headless browser? A headless browser is exactly the same as your regular web browser, except it doesn't have the graphical interface. So it's got a URL, it can open up a web page, it can scrape data from whatever page that it's landing on, and it's got a legitimate purpose. We use headless browsers all the time for automation. Every time I want to get information from certain websites or certain of my own websites, I don't want to see it popping up Windows and Chrome and Safari extensions all over the place. I just want it to do its thing in the background and just give me the information. I don't want to see it visually. And this is what they used here. And exactly what Shannon said, because you are typically signed into your Google account. Nobody logs out of Google once you finished on your YouTube studio. Because you're signed in, it used the headless browser saying, hey, I'm a regular browser. And it went to the studio, and then it managed to suck out all that information, and it got that session ID, that authentication cookies, and it took all of that, packaged it all together. I'm assuming they used a VPN to pretend like they were in the same location. I think it was in Canada, Vancouver.
Yeah.
And therefore, as far as YouTube is concerned, everything ticks the box. Same location, the right information, right username and password, right session, so no need to ask for 2FA again because it's already logged in. It's just the same person. What's the big deal? And that is the danger of a headless browser. Visually, it looks like nothing happened. It could all have been prevented with one tick of having that show me the file extension. And as soon as you can see that, and you can see .scr or .whatever, red flag, it's not a .pdf, doesn't matter what the icon looks like, do not click on it.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is important to mention here. It's like, you guys live in this space. You know, you live in the security space, and you understand the tech space. But for a lot of creators, myself included out there, you know, I've learned some of these things. Like, we don't click anything. We don't click anything. Especially the very first thing I have Megan do, and anybody reaches out, is do research before we even touch anything. Research on the company. I want to know everything about them. Do they really exist? Check the actual email address it's coming from. But it's so easy to spoof so many things nowadays. Your IP address, to spoof, you know, the email addresses sometimes, that it can look very real. And I think that's one of the things, like, what a vulnerability. How many creators in the chat right now would love to have a sponsor reach out and go, we love your channel, that we love what you do, we know these videos, we think you've done a great job, we'd love to pay you and work with you about our new product. We've got a great new product out there that we think you're a perfect fit for. And what happens is, it's not always one email. No. There's been situations where they sit there and they'll do this. They don't come at you at once. They spend time building a relationship, have conversations, and then 34 emails in, then they'll hit you with the one that looks like a PDF, right? Yeah. So it might look like a PDF. You go, that's the contract we were talking about, and then they got you. So Shannon, knowing the kind of things that Liron was just talking about, what are some in this given situation, in this sort of email phishing scam? What are a couple things that creators here in the chat, in the replay, should really think about doing? What are some daily steps when you're going through your email that you really want to pay attention to hopefully subvert some of these potential actions? Mm-hmm.
I love this comment that you put on the screen from Todd. Would love to hear Shannon's opinion about requiring session cookie to be tied to a specific IP to be valid. I have a question for YouTube and Google. Is there a way that Google could build that in so that a session could be tied to an IP for multiple browsers or multiple devices, especially if you're moving from network to network, like if you're a traveling content content creator. Is there a way that you could tie that, or maybe into a MAC address? I'm not sure if you have access to that information on the back end for YouTube, but I would be very curious to know if there would be a way to tie that in. Like, can we start thinking about this? Can we work together and make this happen? Because that would be really cool.
For those of you who may not know, the great Todd Beaupre, who is one of the guys who heads up the recommendation team, works for YouTube. The reason I have always said I think YouTube is by far and away the best platform for creators is because the people who actually work for the company really show that they care about other creators. Todd has been very vocal across multiple platforms trying to help creators at every turn. And here he is today, knowing that this discussion was happening and shows up to be a part of it. So Todd, thank you for being here. Yeah, that's fantastic. So in this situation, so what would you say if someone's getting emails, Shannon? You
Emails,
get them.
Yes.
What are
Sorry, I got sidetracked.
No, Todd sidetracks me all the time. I love it. When he talks, I like to listen.
Yes, me too.
What can creators do if you're opening up your email? What are some things, some real simple steps to go listen?
Yeah.
Always watch out for what?
So I can tell you some of the things that I always look for. The first thing I look for is what email address are they emailing me at? And if it's not my public-facing PR email address, typically I'm going to ignore it because they are either they found an old email address in a leak, or they're trying to phish me for some information through an email address that I don't even use for work. So typically, if they're not using the PR email address, then I'm like, I'm a little bit sketched out just at the front end right there. I look at the email address. If it's coming from the domain of the actual brand or a PR company that I know the brand works with, that's something I look for. I can, through Gmail, you can actually look at the header information for the emails. I believe you have to click on, I'll have to find it and like put it on my Twitter or something. But there's a way that you can look at the header information and look at like the code and try to see if the domain email address matches up with where it's actually coming from, because domains can be spoofed for the from email address. So that's important. And then in the body of text, I look for any kind of grammatical errors. If there's any kind of weird information in there, like, hello, sir. I'm not a sir, so obviously that's not targeted at me. Like, I look for weird things like that. If they do want me to look at some kind of documentation, if they attach anything to the email, it still might be legitimate, but I will reply back and ask them, hey, can you send me a Google Drive link, or can you send me a link to a Google Doc, something that I can read in my browser that won't cause me to have to download anything to read specifically what they want me to do. In particular, I often get I'll get review kits, like companies will send me a PDF via Google Drive to look at in my browser. So I don't have to download the PDF or anything, but it will give me information that they want me to include in a review. That's totally fine if you can read it in the browser in some kind of online format. You can do the same thing with Notion links. You don't necessarily have to use Google Drive or Google Docs for anything. So that's definitely a way that you can kind of circumvent having to download anything. I think, what am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something. And this one's really easy too. So whoever it's coming from, I'll look them up on LinkedIn or look them up on Twitter and make sure that it's actually like a legit person. So all these companies, whether it's PR or a brand, they'll have some kind of profile online, and generally it will be a public-facing one because they're working in marketing or PR, or they're working for the brand. So you can look them up on social media and see who they are. You could also reach out to the brand. If you don't recognize the name or recognize the PR company, you can reach out to the brand on social media and say, hey, so-and-so emailed me from this company. Is this a legitimate PR company? I'm worried it might be social engineering or phishing. That's something I've had to do a couple of times, and on one occasion so far, it was not a legitimate company. So I reported it to the brand so that they knew that this was happening. Liren, am I missing anything about emails?
I think the one important thing is that I think we kind of take it for granted because we kind of done this for a while.
We might.
do not use the same email address for your Google account that you do for your day-to-day communication. This is simplest thing. So you always separate church and state. In other words, you're always going to say, here is my email that I used to log in to Google, and it's got nothing to do with your YouTube channel. Zero. You never respond from that email. You never check that email. You never, just that email for all intensive purposes does not exist anywhere in the world. You will have a completely separate email address that is your email address to use for your communication. And we do that because we want to make sure that if anybody is emailing us and they've got our public-facing email, that is more likely that they are more on the legit side. But if we ever get email to that super secret email that we've never given out to anybody on this planet, that is a huge, huge, huge red flag. And I've seen people do this a lot where they then go and then they unsubscribe from the mailing list. Don't do that. You've just confirmed that it's a valid email address, right? So you've got to separate church and state. Make sure that one email is for public, one email is purely for logging in. I go as far as creating another email for my AdSense. So now I'm now separating my monetization is separate to my YouTube channel. And so if somebody does take over the channel, that was a big scam that they used to do, take over the channel and put their AdSense account so they would get the money. This way you're putting another barrier in place between you and the bad guys, girls, whoever. I think it's critical that it's those little fundamental things that we want to make sure that we get right. And I think even Linus mentioned it on his video, or I think somebody else did. It's never going to be perfect. I want to be absolutely kind of clear. Humans are always going to be the weakest link. We're always going to be the ones who are the most vulnerable. Doesn't matter how much tech we put into play. And it's always going to be a kind of this scale between usability and security. As Daniel said earlier, if it makes us log in every single time we view any video, we're going to get super frustrated and simply not use the system. On the other hand, we can't just be signed in the entire time. The reason we're going on about signing in and signing in and signing out is because one of the ways that this headless browser and the way this cookie and the sessions work is that the second that you're signed out, it resets it. You sign back in, you now have a new session ID. You now have a new cookie.
Yes.
So if somebody stole your stuff right now and you logged out and logged back in, you've just stopped them.
No, let's be clear. I want to be clear here. Log back in and log back out of YouTube, or log back in and log back out of your Google account?
Everything's on Google, at a Google level. Okay. Most of us, I'm willing to, if we take a poll right now into this chat and we see when was the last time people logged out of Google by choice, not by accident, not because they were forced to, logged out by choice, and when was the last time people changed their Google password? I'm sure.
Yeah, let's ask that question. Let's ask in the chat, please. Everybody who has logged out of their complete Google account intentionally and or changed their password intentionally, let's say every month. Have you done it every month? Thumbs up if you have. No judgment here. Thumbs down if you go, no, I don't do it that much. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. So if we just get a feel of how many people are logging out and making sure that they're clearing that cookie. I have to say, should we be signing out of, this is one of the questions from Jessica Rocks, should we be signing out of the apps on our phones in addition to our browsers?
I would say yes, because there's also a session token for your mobile device as well.
And that's is that a separate token? So it's any device could potentially have a mobile token, a desktop token. Well, anywhere you could be signed in could create a token on that device.
Remember, Daniel, you could be logged into your phone, logged into your tablet, logged into your computer, logged into your Chromebook, and then if you log out of the one, you're still logged in, you're still signed in on the other. And there's this big thing of, hey, everyone...
Wait, hang on a second. Honestly, what makes you think that I'm logged into too many devices at once, Leron? I think that is purely.
I'm a tech reviewer. I have like six six phones. I fully understand this problem.
That guitar has an IP address.
But here's the thing, though. Right? They stole the session through malware, and malware is written for like a Windows PC. So if you're on your Android phone, you're going to have more protection built in just because you're using a device that has less malware written for it than you would be on a Windows computer, a Windows desktop or a laptop. That
makes
doesn't
sense.
say that there isn't any, because there have been malicious applications like downloaded through the Google Play Store. There are things that can still steal information from your mobile device, including like locally saved information. So that's always a potential, and it's always a possibility, but I wouldn't worry as much about mobile devices as I would the desktop, just because the huge amount of malware that you see for desktop.
Gotcha.
They're
I have to
always
say a
gonna go-
quick thanks to Rob Christensen for the super chat, who said, "This is such an important conversation. Thanks for putting this on for all of us." Thank you for all of you hanging out, and I agree this is a very important conversation. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Shannon.
Oh, it's okay.
The thing is that they're always going to go after what's most popular and the easiest way to get in. So Windows is still the number one platform that they're going after. It's the most used. But that's not to say that Macs are absolutely impervious. Macs have gained huge popularity, and therefore that's where they're going. That's where they're going after. A mobile phone is always going to be harder. It's just the barriers are just that much more. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. But if you're kind of be security aware from a safety conscientious level, and if you're on a Windows machine, logging out is just never a bad idea. All right. If you're using a password manager, which I believe every single person should, logging back in should be just as seamless. It's log out, log back in, and you'll start a new session using your password manager. And then, of course, you got your two-factor authentication. You got your YubiKey or your Google Titan, and all you're going to do is simply touch a button. Is that not worth 30 seconds of your life to literally make sure that your entire stuff is protected? At the end of the day, it's our business. Our YouTube is our business. It's our personal information. It's not just the channel. It's Google Drive. It's our Gmail. It's the photos. It's the videos. It's everything. And I think it's worthwhile clicking the button, saying log out, and log back in. We have some ideas of what YouTube could be doing to help us in that case as well. But personally, there's no reason why you just couldn't take that time to do that.
Well, let me ask you guys about that, because this particular situation, this type of attack, done in this phishing way, where they really came in at a completely different angle, there was no people had asked, what about your two-factor authentication? You know, where there's all these recommendations from Google and YouTube how to better secure your account, and they give you recommendations. I'm going to be posting some of the links for these things up in the replay of this. When I come back, I'll get back in, I'll put chapters, and anything we mention, I'll put links to along the way, so you'll be able to find some of these resources. But there are, but Google tells us, like, you should use, there's, they have a bunch of different programs that you can use, but they're always telling us to use a 2FA, which means instead of just signing in, there's one other step that it requires you to do. But in this case, it bypassed that whole thing because it wasn't coming in through that door, right? It was already in your browser. So as Linus had explained, he was there trying to reset passwords and do things, but he was plugging the wrong hole.
Yes.
That's not where the leak was. He was over here
Yes.
trying to fix something, and the leak was actually over here. And he was deleting the streams, and he was trying to regain, change it, and they just kept putting the streams back up because he was addressing the wrong thing. Can you talk to me about, Shannon? Can you talk to me about the idea of what kind of Google security measures are in place, things like a 2FA. What does 2FA mean? Are there any things? One of the things that Leron mentioned is the YubiKey. I have a YubiKey right here, which is a little device. It's a hardware device. We all have them. There we go.
Oh my gosh,
Perfect.
That's awesome.
So can you guys talk a little bit about that? Like, what kind of security features beyond this particular situation, just when you're using your computers, your laptops, you're moving around in general?
I love that you're asking this, because one of the discussions I saw about YouTube hacks, if it has to do with your session cookie, why do I need to set up two-factor authentication too? Because that's not going to protect me. Well, it isn't going to protect you from the session cookie hacks, that malware. 2FA is not going to protect you from that, but 2FA will protect you from the other attacks that are constantly happening against YouTube, as well as other accounts that you might have on the internet. So it's really important to have both things. Think about both of these attacks, not just one or the other, because you're not plugging both of the holes. You need to make sure that you're plugging both of those. So I look at it as kind of like how do you lock up your house when you go on vacation? If you only lock like your front door, but you leave the garage door open, you're still leaving the garage door open. So if somebody sees the front door is locked and they're like, oh, well, they have two-factor authentication, that stinks, they're still going to try for the session cookie and go in through the garage door. So you got to think about it like in that aspect of an all-encompassing, like holistic approach to security, not just one or the other. And I think that's so important when it comes to two-factor authentication. So...
All right.
Should we talk about 2FA? Like, what is 2FA?
Yeah, give people an idea of what it is. I mean, because I think sometimes what happens is I'm a huge fan of knowledge is power, and I think most of these situations we see where people are getting taken advantage of is because the person on the other end has more knowledge than that creator or user might, and they're using that knowledge against them. So I'm always in favor of empowering creators with as much knowledge so that they can be prepared for these kinds of things. So explain a little about 2FA and what we can do to secure our accounts right now. I want practical advice that people can walk away and get on right now.
So two-factor authentication is basically means that you're logging in with more than just your username and password. So obviously, every time you go to a website, because passkeys haven't been implemented everywhere yet, I'm really looking forward to that day when we don't have to deal with passwords anymore, but that's not a thing yet. Normally, you just log in with your username and password. If a website has implemented 2FA, or multi-factor authentication is another saying for it, that means that you will see a second page load up that will ask you for a 6-digit code, or it will ask you to plug in a little hardware key like the ones that we were all holding up. All of us have these little YubiKeys, so instead of a 6-digit code, you would just plug this thing into your computer and then log in. The nice thing about 2FA is even if somebody stole your username and password, like say it got leaked somehow it ended up on a dark web forum, maybe you looked it up in haveibeenpwned.com, that's owned with a P. I highly recommend you use that website to find data leaks. If you find out that your password was stolen somewhere, 2FA can help protect you a little bit further, because then an attacker would also need to have that 6-digit code or that little hardware key that you plug into your computer. And chances are they're attacking you from some remote location that's super far away from you, not like in your house. So chances are they won't be able to steal this hardware key too.
So is that the idea of the 2FA? Is that, okay, someone has your password, someone has your they have your email to get into your account, they have the password, but when they go to log in from another location, you've set it up in the way, go, well, that's not enough. You have to do one more thing. Is that the idea of 2-factor?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, exactly. It is one more thing. So it's the same thing with like a debit card. If somebody stole your debit card and tried to run it as a debit card, they would need your PIN code too. So we've been using 2FA for decades and we just haven't realized it. Like, this is just the newer version of 2FA that we have already been using in the real life for years and years and years. So when it comes to the 6-digit codes versus the hardware key, the interesting things with that right now is 6-digit codes can also be stolen, and there's a few different ways that has been happening in the past several years. If you get 6-digit codes just texted to you via a phone number, so you like pop up your phone, look at your text, and you see a 6-digit code. This is oftentimes like how some banks do it if they have 2FA. Hopefully they do, but a lot of them don't. They'll just say, you must type in the 6-digit code to the website before you can log in. This code expires in 2 minutes or something, or 60 seconds, or whatever it might be. You type that 6-digit code in, and then you log in. Unfortunately, a lot of people have, or a lot of attackers have figured out that they can do social engineering attacks against phone carriers that allow them to steal your phone number and start getting text messages on their phone, which means they would start receiving your 6-digit codes to their phone as opposed to those 6-digit codes coming to your phone. So if I was an attacker, and I have my phone over here, it's a Pixel 7 Pro. I'm an Android junkie. I love it. I call up the phone carrier and I say like, hey, my phone got stolen. I need to transfer my phone number over to this new device. Like, here's my IMEI. They transfer it over to my SIM. And then all of a sudden I'm getting your text messages. And that includes your 6-digit code. That's why a lot of people nowadays recommend that you upgrade to either an application that you download on your phone or one of these hardware keys. like this one.
Right,
The
and
application. Oh, go
and
ahead.
the hardware key, just because I think we've shown them, and I think sometimes we talk about keys and things, and people are like, well, that was neat, but what the heck is it? And it literally is a tiny little mechanism that is actually USB. You drop it into your USB, and that little circle right there, when you're logging in, it'll say, okay, please insert your key. You drop that into a USB, and that little circle, you just put your finger onto it. It makes you physically do something to, that no one out there is going to be able to do this particular step, right? Like another hacker is not going to have my YubiKey that's been attached to my account and be able to, unless they're in my living room grabbing it and putting it into their system, they're not going to be able to do it. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very fair. That's a great explanation. Thank you.
Okay, well, where can people get these? Because I know that's not YubiKey is who I own. I don't know which ones you guys own, but there are different types. Google makes some. Where can people buy these YubiKeys, and how do they get their hands on them?
I love that you asked that, because I am currently in the process of posting a video called a buyer's guide for hardware tokens. It mostly focuses on YubiKey. Disclaimer, they're working with me in a partnership, but you can also find Google Titan's security keys, which are also very good. The reason why I tend to choose YubiKeys for the past decade or so is because they have much more diverse option when it comes to purchasing these. So whether I need one for an iPhone with Lightning, or if I need one with NFC, or there you go. Yeah, Liren has the new one from Google. That's the new Google Titan key, isn't it? The USB-C one. Yeah, they're so nice. And even though they look like flash drives, they're actually not. They have completely different chipsets inside of them that are used specifically to create a handshake between you and the website that you're trying to log into. So even if you buy 5 or 6 different YubiKeys, which you don't need that many, each one would have a different handshake involved because they have different fingerprints on them. So even if somebody stole your key that you use to authenticate with, I don't know, YouTube, and you used a different key to log into Twitter, then that key would not work for both of your accounts. With that said, though, you can use the same hardware key for tons and tons of different websites. So if you wanted to use it for Twitter, if you wanted to use it for Gmail and YouTube, if you wanted to use it for, I don't know, maybe you have a bank that actually does use hardware keys, which is very rare, but maybe 2 of them exist in the world, then you could use the same key for all of those. A lot of people don't choose hardware keys because they think that you have to plug it in every single time you want to log in, or you have to actually carry it around with you all the time. I will go to Target one day and have to log into my Target app. I don't necessarily have to use it because the device, the Target app has already associated my device with my account. So I don't necessarily have to plug it in every single time I want to log into that app. You just have to do it whenever you need to renew that session ID.
Yeah, I've had that situation where sometimes I've been in places on a specific device. I didn't have my key with me, and I was in a different area where it would ask me, because with the keys, they work for this, you just touch it to your mobile phone up top of an iPhone, and it does it, you don't have to insert it, you just touch it to the top, and it's oh, okay, you're authenticated. But I have it set up on at least one of my devices where I can say, try another method, and it will send a text message, which probably is not too smart, but I do that sometimes. Yeah. And I just bought one from Megan, a YubiKey. They're $50. You get them on Amazon.
Not even that now. You can find them for $25.
Oh, really? Yeah, they're real easy to get their hands on. I want to pull this page up here. Let me share the screen over here. This is actually one of Google's pages. Let me add this to the stream, and I'll see if I can increase it so you can see it a little better, and maybe I can get my old man microscope out. But these are some of the things, Liron, I want to ask you about this. These are some of the things that Google is saying that we should do to help secure our account. Right off the bat, they're saying, add or update account recovery options, turn on your 2FA. Here's another thing they're saying that we might want to do: remove risky access to your data. What on earth do we mean by risky access to your data?
Okay, so I think everyone needs to go to their Google accounts. It's like myaccounts.google.com. And then there's a tab there called security. And under the security tab, you'll be able to see third parties that you have given access to that you've chosen to say, hey, you're allowed to use some aspects of my YouTube channel. Typically, it'll be things like YouTube analytics, or it will be like they'd be able to pull data or use some aspect of that. So third parties are awesome because they can pull data and you can use that service, but they do come with a risk because they now have access to your information. So what Google is basically saying is, hey, do an audit. Every once in a while, go to this particular web page on your own account. Just go through that list and make sure that the ones that are supposed to be there are there, and the ones that maybe you've stopped using are not there, and you can just remove them. And if you remove one by mistake because it needs to be there, well, the next time you try to use that service, it's going to say to you, hey, like, I need to log back in again, just authenticate me and allow me to go in. So removing risky access to your data is pretty much that. But another thing is, as YouTube creators, because I'm assuming we're talking to our YouTube creator friends here, is that under YouTube, you actually can give permissions to other people to access your channel. And what happens is when you start working with other people with a bigger team, maybe you have an editor, maybe you've got a manager, you go into your settings and you give them permissions. The problem is we tend to give permissions at the highest possible level, as the editor now becomes the owner of the channel. And that's bad, because if they get hacked, they now have access to everything that you're doing on your channel. So another good thing to do as a security audit is go into your settings, go into permission, and just make sure you give the minimum access to those that need it. If I'm working with a channel and I'm helping them with their data, I always ask for viewer-only access. And they say, no, it's cool, we trust you, we'll give you full access. Like, absolutely not. Because if I get hacked, I'm going to take you down with me. So I want to make sure I've got the minimum permission. So viewer only, I can just see stuff as opposed to be able to do things.
Yeah, and if any of you are aware of where this is inside of YouTube Studio, if you log into your account from desktop, go to YouTube Studio, and if you go down to the settings, click on settings, and it opens up permission. This is your settings here. Go down to the permissions tab, and as you can see, I've blocked out the email address for myself and for Megan, but you're seeing I'm listed here. That's a multiple hands. My mouse is loving me. You're seeing that I'm listed here. I know. It's like this should come with a warning before anyone watches the live stream. But what you're looking at is I'm the owner, and I've added Megan, but I've only added Megan as a viewer. And what it says is that she can view everything, but she can't create, edit, or delete anything. So she has the ability to come in. She has the ability to do things on the channel that she needs to see. But if she needs to get membership access and talk, figure out who's a new member who's been added to the battalion membership, but that it's very limited. And that was one of the mistakes that I think Linus had hinted at, that he had some people who had higher tier permissions, such as editor, where they could go in and they could go live, they could create content, they have higher tier options where they could actually, a manager could actually, as it's listed, can view everything, manage permissions, go live, create, edit, and delete content. So making someone a channel manager really gives a whole nother portal or access point to your account, and you're thinking, well, I'm completely secure. But if they have permissions, then you really am I saying that right? You're a slave to how good their personal security measures are on their own system.
So here is where, like, my first recommendation to YouTube would be. And under that screen, we have certain levels. We have manager, we have editor, and then we have a whole bunch of others. I would love to see an option for a role in there that allows us to give permission to someone like an editor, because a lot of people do work with external teams, who's only allowed to upload and manage the videos that they upload. So not automatically get access to absolutely everything. Ideally, it should be only allow them to upload the role should only allow them to upload a video to the channel, but not make it live. So you or somebody else on your team with higher permission can go in and make it live. If we make just that change alone, even if somebody on my team does get hacked and they do have access to the channel, the damage is going to be limited to nothing, because all those videos will simply be unlisted. So as if we were talking about recommendation to YouTube, that should be a fairly simple one to implement. I say that because knowing that YouTube is global and every tiny little thing has got a massive, huge knock-on effect. But in simple terms, if we can have an intermediate step, like a holding pattern, where somebody can upload and somebody else needs to go make that video live, I think that's going to save us a lot of heartaches. And then when we get onto what can YouTube do session, there's a couple of other stuff that I think we could actually help improve our stuff. But for right now, if going into that account, to myaccount.google.com, is so critical. You'll be able to see who's got access. It shows you what devices you're logged in at. Maybe you've got a phone that you happen to upgrade and that's sitting in a drawer somewhere and you haven't touched it for a while. Why does it need to be signed in? Just log that sucker out. There's no reason for it to be. You want to minimize your footprint. We talk in the industry about vectors. Hackers are looking for those weak opportunities, those weak points of entry where they could try get into your system. Something like a discarded phone, something like that is just sitting there, and maybe it's switched on, maybe it hasn't had the latest security update because you really don't care about that phone anymore. Maybe you're just using it to watch YouTube on the couch. Great. That's awesome for me as a hacker. I'd love that phone because I can use that to get onto your Wi-Fi, to get onto your other devices. So don't be signed in to things that you're not actively using. And I know this sounds like a broken record, but I keep going back to it. Just sign out.
Do you think, because I'm looking at some of the things that, that Google is suggesting here, and I have to say, shout out to Renee Ritchie, you saw him on the screen a second ago, who is the YouTube liaison and works for YouTube, trying to make sure that he communicates with the creators at large and in the creator economy, in the creator space. Another example of when I tell you that people who work for YouTube really do go out of their way to make themselves available to people who are out there and have questions. So I'm a big fan of Renee on Twitter, especially the YouTube liaison. If you have a Twitter account, you should go over and make sure you follow Renee because he's always there answering questions and offering advice. But one of the things I'm looking right here, some of the simplest things, turn on your screen locks. So I don't know that that's going to be the cure-all, but simple things like, like if someone can pick up my phone, if I happen to lose my phone, if they can get right in, if I don't have it password protected or screen locks, they could just pick up my phone, turn it on, and they could just get in and they can start accessing anything I'm signed into. So sometimes it is simple things that become the biggest problems that we forget to do because I think we live in an era of we want easy. We don't like a lot of hurdles. We like to be able to get through our day. Everything's integrated. We like things to exist in an ecosystem where everything talks to each other and we just pick up our device and go and everything happens instantly. And I think technology pushes towards that, trying to make things easier for us. Here's a couple other things. Shannon, what do you think about some of these? Some of the other steps that Google is recommending just for security in general. Update your browser, update your operating system, and update your apps. What do you think about that as a piece of advice?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like auto update if you can. I know a lot of people have issues with auto updates because sometimes they break things, but that's very rare when that does happen. And generally, you can go back to a previous version. So like auto updating is so important and making sure that you have the most up-to-date information, especially like if you're using the Chrome browser, which I'm going to assume that a lot of people do because that's the most popular browser in the world. They have updates all the time. And a lot of their updates come out because they are updating for security. So it's really important to stay on top of those updates. Anytime you see that, I got like so harped on recently because I did a screen record for a YouTube video that I did and I left the update for like 2 days and it turned yellow and people were like, you need to update your browser. I'm like, yes, I know. So even I am not perfect with this, even though I live in this like InfoSec world, but that's so important. Just little things like that can really, really help protect you because oftentimes, like, even if you're using Windows and maybe you have Windows Defender turned on, make sure that it's auto updating because oftentimes they will flag newer malware as soon as it comes out and they will include that in their like registry or their library of flags and it will trigger and stop or block any kind of malware that you could potentially be downloading. Now, I wouldn't use that as the only source of a defense and like start downloading everything and not caring anymore. You should definitely still take an approach to online security as like a holistic thing, but that can be an additional step that a attacker would have to bypass in order to, gain access to your account. So yeah, keep everything updated, all the things.
While we're here for 1 second, I do want to talk. Leon, did you want to jump on that? Was there something else?
There was just a couple. Like, there's a trend that's kind of going on in the comments about using an authenticator app, and I think we're just going to just address that quickly.
Sure.
That you can, like, the lowest form of one-time password, the OTP, is when you get an email. Say, hey, here's your code.
Yeah.
Okay. Typically, if they have your username and password, they're going to be able to get into your email. So don't use that. As Shannon said, SIM swap is a problem when you go do an SMS-based one-time password. So the next level up is just using Google Authenticator, or Authy is another good app. What those apps do, they're essentially the ability to link your account to that app. And then when you log in, you put your username and password as per normal. But then the next step is it's going to say to you, hey, what's the code that's right now on your phone that you need to put in? And that code changes all the time. That is a huge barrier that right now anybody can do. Is completely free, and you can get an insane level of security just by doing that. The one thing I just wanted to note is that there are loads of other apps that have come out in the app stores since Twitter's announcement that they're going to revoke that stupid thing of two-factor authentication. So a lot of rogue apps have popped up in the store saying, hey, this is the Twitter alternative. Come and use us as your authenticator app. Just be very careful of which app you use. I use Authy and Google Authenticator, and those two are pretty legit. So I just wanted to kind of plug that hole there. So the next level up there is a physical key, whether it's a Titan key from Google or whether it's YubiKey or others. But that's kind of that's the ideal kind of the gold factor. None of this is going to stop what happened to Linus, to be clear. Right. Okay. But that's just one attack, like Shannon said. It's just one. There are literally thousands and thousands of different attacks that happen all the time. And most of them are just scripts. They just get run automatically, and they try to get a hit rate. And sometimes they're in and sometimes they're out. But just having that key makes you that much of a harder target. They're not going to bother with you. They're going to move on to the millions of other people in their database. So I just wanted to throw that in because it's a conversation happening in the chat as well.
Yeah, and I put the link to the page that you're looking at here. This is Google, what they call their advanced protection program, which talks about some of the things like Google Authentication, Authy, some of their own keys that you can get. So if you're interested in checking out some of this, I will be putting these links in chapters later on so you can find them as well. But I'm going to make sure that you guys will have everything we talk about. You see on screen, you'll be able to find all of these things later on. I'm sorry, Shannon, you wanted to say something?
Oh, I did see a few people concerned with, like, what if I lose my hardware key, or what if somebody does steal it? Like, what do I do in that situation? And in that situation, you have a second key. So you can purchase a second key, and you can also register that second key on your account. So even if somebody steals your first key, your like primary key, you can like get your second key out of your safe or wherever you're storing it. Hopefully it's like a secret place. Keep it secret, keep it safe. Yeah. And I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd. Sorry. And you can use that one to log into your account and revoke the primary key, so they would lose that access if that's how they were authenticated. And then you can go in and revoke whatever device that they are logged in from. So that way you still have access. Also, when you set up two-factor authentication, whether backup codes. Yep. Whenever you set up two-factor authentication, you will see a screen. And this doesn't matter whether you do it with an app on your phone like Authy or Google Authenticator, or you use a hardware key. One of the very last screens you will see while you're setting it up will say, like, these are your backup codes. And it will give you 10 static backup codes that you should print out, or you should copy like into a notebook or something. Make it offline so nobody could steal it digitally. And you copy these down, and if anything happens where you lose access to your account, or you like lost your hardware key, or maybe your phone got stolen so you don't have access to your codes that you're getting on your app. That way you can still get in with one of those backup codes. As soon as you use that backup code, it is no longer valid. So you can only use it once, and then you would have to go on to the second backup code. That's why they give you 10 of them. Now, if you lose your backup codes, you can always get in with your hardware key, and you can refresh the backup codes that you are given. So you can go back into your security settings and like wipe the original ones and get new ones. So if for some reason, like, I don't know, your house burned down and you don't have those backup codes anymore, let's pray that never happens to any of us.
Don't jinx us.
Then you do have options. So even if like something does happen to your 2FA, you do have backup options. And I just want to make sure that it's like super clear, like you're not going to be totally screwed if something happens to your primary 2FA.
And Google helps you as well. So at the end of the day, once you try to log in and you can't, and then you say, try another way, and your codes don't work, then it's going to say, well, did you have a recovery phone or recovery email? And you're going to try that. And then if you're part of the Google Advanced Protection Program, then they'll say, hey, look, we're not going to just instantly recover it. Give us 2 days.
Which they shouldn't.
We're going to try and get you. And they do a whole bunch of checks on their side to see if you're from the same browser, same IP, a whole bunch of checks. And then eventually they'll get you back in. So if you lose absolutely everything, you're still going to be okay as long as you play by their rules. But just know, the tighter the security, kind of the more irritation you're going to experience. But then you kind of got to say, well, what's worth it for me and what isn't?
Right. I want to take 1 second here, because we're talking a lot about preventative measures and things you can do to do everything possible to protect yourself. But having worked with a lot of creators who have had their channels hijacked and taken over, and having worked with channels that have been deleted from the platform and have to go through the process of trying to get them back for a variety of reasons, one of the things I don't think gets talked about enough is what happens once you've lost your channel. If you show up and you go, I've lost my channel, you can't get access to it, you've been flushed out, and it's now deleted from the platform, which happens. That's exactly what happened with Linus. Was once they started running all of these podcast style things, telling people about cryptocurrency, and then what that happened was they were pushing them towards these links to try to get them into this scam that was a well-known scam. The YouTube AI sees that and recognizes the scam, and we can argue all day that they should have said, well, wait a minute, this channel, don't we have anything in place that you would protect a channel that big, that they probably wouldn't do this. But those automated things happen, and they immediately strike the channel 3 times, and then the channels are taken off the platform. But one thing I think the creators do not know how to do is how to retrieve their channel. Mm-hmm. First of all, I'm going to drop a link here in chat, which is actually the Google form that you would need to access if you had your channel taken away and you knew it was hijacked and you needed to try to recover it. But one of the funniest things that I don't think gets talked about is there's certain information that you will need to have on hand if you're trying to recover your channel. And I don't think enough people have that information documented. So I really want to take a minute for everybody here and in the replay to make sure that you know this information and you have it stored somewhere that you can retrieve, because there's some very simple things that are going to happen that YouTube's going to ask you some simple questions like, okay, what was your name, first and last? This is the actual hijack form. It's going to say, what's the contact email? How can we reach you? There may be a situation where your email has been compromised and you don't have access to the email that would have been associated with your channel anymore. But you can put a contact email and say, well, this is how you can reach me. But then the very next question here is, drop in your channel ID. Now, if your channel's been removed from the platform and you don't have that channel ID stored someplace, it's not like you can just go onto YouTube and go, let me grab the channel ID, because you've been locked out. That account has been now suspended or terminated from the platform. So knowing what your channel ID is and where to find it, let me start right here. For all of you out there right now, go into, or don't do this second, but write this down. You can come back and watch later. What you want to do is you want to go into your YT Studio, all right? And what you want to do is you want to click on Settings, which is down in the lower left, and then you will see a pop-up window. This is a little tricky, that says Settings. Click on General. That's what you're seeing here. And then click on the tab to the right, Advanced settings. And at the bottom down here, you'll see these two: manage your YouTube channel or remove your YouTube content. Don't click on remove your content. Right, when you have a chance, go in there, manage your YouTube account, and when you click on that, what that'll do is open up another screen over here that will give you some options. On the left side, go all the way down to advanced settings, and if you see here, you'll have a user ID, which I blocked mine. Don't share your user ID, but you will have your channel ID that you can hit this button and copy. That is your ID. Make sure that you have your channel ID somewhere on a backup drive some point. So if you do have your channel hijacked and you have none of that information and it's been removed from the platform, you can actually fill out this form that you're going to need to fill out to make sure that you can give YouTube the information that you need. Another thing they're going to ask you is, when did you create the channel? Now, a lot of people off the top of their heads go, I don't, a couple of years ago? 2000 something, but knowing that exact date is going to be really important. So knowing your channel ID, making that sure that's saved, knowing when it was created, what was the primary email address associated with your channel. So you want to make sure, even if you can't access that, that you know what the email address is that is associated with the account for that channel. And then they're going to run you through a bunch of stuff over here that it's a little easier to answer. Things like, can you currently sign into your account, or which one of the following categories describes the content on your channel. They're going to ask some general questions, making sure sort of they know who you are, checking your information, but make sure you have these things put aside. They're also going to ask you things like questions about your AdSense. So knowing your personal ID, your AdSense ID, if your channel is monetized, can be very important when you're trying to retrieve your channel. So I have put the link there. I'll make sure I'll put this up later, but make sure that you have this stuff stored. One of our channel members, Mike Fiorini, who's Hybrid Steel is his YouTube channel, had this thing happen to him. The minute it happened, he was met with all these questions, and he said, I don't have that information stored. Fortunately, he was able to get his channel back. We worked with some of the guys in group, and he was able to get through the process. He did get it back. But that stuff, if you don't immediately have it stored and you don't have someone who can help you find that information, can be really problematic for retrieving the channel. But let's talk about I'm sorry, if you want to jump in, please do. I talk a lot, Leroy.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that there's some frustration at YouTube to say, hey, my channel got hacked, I want it back immediately. And those poor people who manage the team YouTube account, God bless them, they're amazing, and all they get is hate 24 hours a day. I don't know how they do it. But YouTube is not going to go, oh, okay, and then simply recover the account. They have to go through due diligence. They have to go through a process where they have to make sure that you are who you say you are. And that could be different teams. It could be based around the world. We need to understand that this is not just a question of, oh, flick a switch, you'll get your channel back. These big implications and ramifications if they get it wrong. So we do have to recognize that the more data we give YouTube, the more that we can empower YouTube to say, hey, look, I am the legit owner. Here is what I know about my own channel. Here is what I've done. This is where I sign in from. These are my recovery email addresses, my recovery phones. The stuff that is not publicly available. The more you can help YouTube, the quicker you're going to get access to your channel back. Will you get it overnight? Probably not. Will it take a little while? Yes. Will it be painful? Yes. But it gets to a point that there's nothing you can do besides stress, but YouTube has to go through their process. So as Daniel was saying, the more data you know about your own stuff, the more you can prove that you are the legitimate owner, the quicker it's just going to the better it's going to make everybody's life just that much simpler. So get onto it. Copy
and they're going to ask you things in this form. You'll see things like, what's your IP address? Like knowing things that people don't think about on a daily basis. So taking a look at the form, and I'll post it again in chat right now, but I will have it available afterwards. When you have a moment afterwards, I'll put it in, I'll make sure it's in the description, and you'll be able to find all this everywhere. Take a second and go through this and go, if the worst happened, would I be able to answer all these questions? Let me grab that information and put it somewhere on an SSD, an external drive. So if all else fails,
keep it with your secondary YubiKey.
There you go. Right. Hide it. Don't just leave it out in plain sight. But have it there so that you can, in the worst case scenario, not be it's panicking enough when this happens. But then go, I don't have the answers to these questions. I wish I had known that beforehand, and it'll make the path a little easier for you. Todd Beaupre says creators and YPP can get that through that support through Studio, which is fantastic. Except when your channel's locked out and terminated, you can't get into YT Studio. So it's one of those things. Yeah, any of those kind of he was probably referring to a different question in there, but yeah, I want to make sure that everybody understands that YouTube really is trying to solve a lot of these issues. They are listening. They're right here in chat, and they are listening. So I don't want any of you to ever feel that the people who are working at YouTube aren't paying attention to these situations. Yeah.
Well, and then Daniel, you got to remember that if I'm putting in kind of my black hat on for a second and I'm researching this. Okay. I was literally just going to say what Todd said. I am going to pretend that I lost my channel and what are the processes. I'm going to learn from that experience so that I know what to get ready to try get it to hack somebody's channel. Literally what Todd just said is they go through the same forms, pretend they're the victims, so YouTube hand over their accounts to them. Imagine if YouTube did that. Imagine if somebody got access to Linus' channel saying, hey, Linus, congratulations, your channel is back. And it wasn't them. Yeah. That will be even worse than taking that extra hour or that extra day, or some case the extra 3 or 4 days, just to make sure that everything is ticked. Because hackers, the way they get in is they reverse engineer a process. They understand what's the right way of doing it, and they go, okay, how can I break that? Right. How can I get in the middle of that? How can I get access to that information? And they're going to go through the exact same form. So I'm glad Todd brought it up because that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and it's exactly what Shannon was talking about earlier when we were talking about you guys were mentioning SMS as a 2FA. Look at me just throwing all kinds of letters.
Whoa, look at you go.
I'm proud of you.
Two-factor authentication, one of it in SMS, we just literally need text message like, hey, I'm trying to log into my account. Here's my email, my password. And one of the two-factor authentication, that's fine. We're going to need one more step. We've sent a code to your phone. We've texted you. You'll need to enter that code in here. And like Shannon was saying, one of the ways it's so silly. These hackers will actually contact like Verizon or whoever your carrier is and say they're you and just hound them and convince them, because they know how to do this, that they've lost their phone or someone has stolen their phone and they need that information transferred over to their new phone. And because Verizon isn't thinking, they've been better about it, but these companies aren't thinking, oh, this is someone trying to break into their YouTube channel and steal their YouTube channel. They're trying to be helpful and say, oh my gosh, don't worry. We'll make sure your new phone is set up. That's what we're here to do. And they're handing your information over. That's why when you see YouTube take time and be thorough, is so that exact same thing doesn't happen when we're talking here about YouTube channels.
Daniel, on that, you'll be surprised how simple it is to actually pick up the phone to customer services. And as long as you got some basic information, you could pressurize the other poor person on the other line who's just doing their job and they just want to help their customer. And if you can put in things like noises of a baby screaming in the background, or some kid has fallen and they need to call 911, so they need access to this, it's amazing how much just pushing a little bit here and there using good social engineering skills, how quickly they would give you stuff that they're not supposed to. They just want to help you, and they're not thinking, oh, I've got to protect every single person. It's like everyone is a scammer. They don't want to help their customers. Otherwise, they get shouted at by their higher up manager who how dare you ask too many questions? So we know that. Like, we know which buttons to kind of push. It's not that difficult. And just on that quickly, just so everybody knows, with your cell phone provider, with your cell phone carrier, most of them do have options to say, do not allow to swap the SIMs unless something happens, unless you physically go into a store. So again, extra burden on you, extra issue. You can't just pick up the phone and make that phone call. But is that not worth it for the sake of your security? And I guess everything we're talking around today is about usability versus security, and where is that scale? What's comfortable for you to make sure your business is protected?
Okay, well, while we're talking about protection here, and we've kind of walked through a lot of different scenarios here, and you guys have been absolutely fantastic. Now that we have some people from YouTube in the chat here, and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but
be nice, Daniel.
What can YouTube be doing better? I mean, I mean, even Linus had some great suggestions. I mean, shouldn't there be some basic, like, hey, if you're going to change your channel name, make me log back in. Don't do it without, make me require a password. Hey, if you're going to delete 100 videos or more than X amount of videos, 100%. Just ask for my password 100%. First, and put one layer in front of these massive things that could really change the trajectory of that channel and get it taken down. Give me anything that you guys can think of. That what are your suggestions?
It's like, I mean, that's just kind of, I tweeted about this a couple of days ago when Linus was first going through it, as we were waiting for details, because everybody can jump in on the bad way. Oh, we should have done this and you should have done that. Like, just wait for the details, right? But the one thing that, like, it's all about patterns at the end of the day. The algorithms, in plural, and the AI systems in plural, they have a feel for what is right and what is wrong on a channel. I don't know of any creator who would rename their channel, unlist all their videos, or delete all their videos at the same time as uploading 10 live streams and they've never live streamed before. That doesn't really happen. So when something is an anomaly of that extreme measure, we should be prompted to say, hold on a second, is this really you? Right. So yes, we delete a video. Yes, we maybe delete 2 or 3 videos because we're cleaning up, but deleting 1,000 videos, unlikely. Right? If we're going to start a new channel, we would start a new channel. So when something is that unlikely in the realm of possibility, we're not saying stop, pick up the phone YouTube, get 17. We're not saying go extreme. We're just saying, hey, just authenticate yourself again. Just make sure you're right. So those kind of pattern recognitions of what is an abnormal behavior, that should send out some sort of an alert and allow you to say, oh, yes, it's still me. I do, in fact, want to upload the scan. Okay, cool. We'll nuke your channel tomorrow. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Or we are about to rename your channel. Why? Right. Well, okay. Just log back in to make sure that it is you renaming. And if you're going to delete 1,000 videos or unlist all your videos, maybe that does require a secondary prompt. And maybe those prompts can come in at a random time. So it's not immediate. Maybe it's a 5-minute wait, or maybe it's 30-minute wait. Something that doesn't allow me to automate a process. Therefore, I could write code around it and go, well, if I do this, I'm going to get an email. Therefore, check the email. Therefore, log back in. Because that email could come at any time. I think patterns, and YouTube is all about that patterns, all about that recognition. Looking inwards instead of kind of video suggestions and video recommendations, looking inwards at the channel behavior, that should be a good place to start. Session, time out, you're done. There's no way you're doing this. Just double check that it's you.
Yeah, quick question there from Pat's Tune. Not all people take there are channels out there. It's an older school thing. I'm not a big fan of multi-channel networks, MCNs, people who step in and say, hey, we'll have your AdSense sent to us and we'll make sure that you get paid and we'll help you grow your channel by bringing a lot of channels together. And they're not a fan of them. But it's basically multi-channel networks are an entity that were more prevalent back when there were channels like gaming channels that had a harder time getting monetized, and they would step in and they would guarantee monetization, and then they would go back and they would collect that monetization later on and make sure you got paid and take a cut of it. And they make promises of trying to help you grow your channel faster. I'm not a big fan of them. I don't think they've ever really worked. That's my opinion. But that would mean that someone else may have access to collecting your AdSense account other than you. So that's all they mean by that. If you haven't joined an MCN, then you don't have anything to worry about. In this, do we think that there's going to be a point where we're just constantly trying to play this whack-a-mole game with what's going on? I think that's part of the concern. Is I know that YouTube is constantly trying to err on the side of precaution, where they really don't go. You don't want to quickly make a change on something that's going to just disrupt the whole system. Even though it seems, I think some of these ones are easy to implement, but I do understand. Like, listen, I think sometimes forget. There's 82, 83 hours of I mean, 83 years of content uploaded to the channel every single day. You know, I mean, it's just tons of content, and a lot of these systems are automated. They don't have the kind of manpower to have a real person every single moment for every single situation go through this. I mean, the system would collapse. There's no way they could be profitable at that point. And for many years, YouTube wasn't very profitable. They've been spending all their money putting it back into the platform and then giving, you know, creators 55% of their ad revenue. So I think it's one of those things. Is it an expectation? Are we fighting a system that the creators demand equality and they demand definitive action in a scenario and in a paradigm where that may never be something that's going to happen in a universal way, that YouTube can just go, that we have that taken care of? Because we're seeing things like, I have a problem with people will spoof me. They'll go into, you probably had it happen, they go into your comments section on a high-performing video, and there's my face with my name on a channel, and it's telling them, hey, I thank you for watching the video. I'm glad you liked it. Thanks for commenting. I've got something for you. Please reach out to me on WhatsApp or Telegram. And it's not me, and I get people emailing me going, I don't have Telegram. I wanted to email you. You reached out and you wanted to talk to me. And it's just that sort of I don't want to call it gullibility, but they prey upon people in the moment. And I think that there's areas in there like, can't we go like, hey, if I'm a verified channel on YouTube, I've got a check mark. I've proven myself to a certain degree. There's only so many. Under 1% of the channels on YouTube are, you know, silver play button channels and beyond. Can't we have a layer of protection where you go, listen, we can scan a million things. We've got great bots. Can we scan if someone's using your name and your profile picture and starting a new channel and making sure if you're not Daniel Batal, we're going to put up some blocks and make that hard for you to do? Doesn't that seem, Shannon, are there areas in there that you see that YouTube could do better?
You know, I love that you said the term whack-a-mole, because that is like legitimately the way that information security versus like malicious attackers has been since the day of time, like since the dawn of time. That's how hacking has always kind of been a thing. There's a vulnerability, it gets patched. Attackers find a new vulnerability, that one gets patched. And it's back and forth like constantly. And I appreciate, kind of going back to what Liren said earlier, like trying to use some kind of implementation for checks whenever you're making changes. I can give you a great example. I recently deleted like 200 or 300 travel videos from my tech channel because I used to use it just for vlogs, and I uploaded all of those to a new channel, and it didn't ask me to put in my password. It didn't ask for my 2FA, and I deleted 300 videos in one day. 300. So
would that have ruined your experience if it made you do that?
Because I've only done it once. I only had to do it once. And I've been on YouTube for 15 years now. It's been since like it was first a thing. So that's the only time I've ever had to do that. And knowing that, I was just like, that's kind of weird that it didn't ask me for my password to re-log in, to authenticate that I'm actually doing something that's legitimate and that I'm actually wanting to do. Like that would have been really nice. Another idea I have is requiring channels to have two-factor authentication. Now, obviously, that's not going to protect yourself if you download malware, but that will be an additional step that malicious attacker would have to use to gain access to your account. And if you have requiring 2FA as well as requiring checks, if you have like Renee said, a volume of changes or a velocity of changes, whatever that number ends up being in you know, behind the scenes at YouTube, then you're having those two extra things that could protect your account working together, like requiring two-factor authentication or requiring some kind of verification when you create your account or when you get to a certain number of videos that you've uploaded or whatever that number might be. Like, I don't have all these answers, but I feel like if you create these steps, it just adds more protections. It's like a defense. It's like creating more of a defensive line so that they can't find those holes.
Yeah, that's Todd says right there. The scammers are often not using exact profile pic copies to impersonate. They resize or add imperceptible noise so that it's hard to identify as a copy. Also, many innocuous fans mimic pics of channels. Right. Sure. So what he's saying is like sometimes it's just someone who's just a fan. You know, they weren't trying to do anything malicious. And as I said earlier, I always feel like YouTube is in that position where they're constantly trying to err on the side of caution, because how many innocent people do you want to sweep under the rug while trying to also combat very serious problems? Because that's the thing. Just to swing a really large hammer, I get that, Todd. I get that swinging that big heavy hammer and trying to knock everybody down and saying, well, there's going to be some collateral damage is tricky. But I think simple things like requiring us to put our password in for some major changes that we can see patterns here of what's happening. We know what they're doing when they take over channels. And especially when there's trigger points that we're seeing, like these very common Bitcoin schemes. When you see a major channel, a verified channel, suddenly change its name, take several actions, change its name, start live streaming, and then stop dropping links to Bitcoin, there should be triggers in there that you would think that YouTube could automate and go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put this channel in hold. We're going to take control, and we're going to wait and see. This seems very problematic. Instead of just deleting the channel, we're going to take control, which they may have been doing. I got to give them credit. Linus had the channel back in a day, which is insanely fast. Now,
I mean, he had a personal connection in YouTube, though, and a lot of us don't have that.
Do you think that now that, and again, like I said, I think some things are hard to do at scale. Can we expect? Now, I will say, in YouTube's defense, listen, is a channel with 20 subscribers and 2 videos likely to be stolen, hijacked, and have people start streaming onto, some sort of a Bitcoin scam? Probably not. Not because I'm trying to offend any small creator. It's you don't have the reach. It's the high-profile targets, the ones that have reach, are typically the ones that are going to be in the crosshairs more frequently. Not to say that smaller channels won't be, but more frequently they will be in the crosshairs. And you have to understand, I feel that I get why a larger channel would get some immediate attention, because it's important to a lot of people. It affects a lot of people along the way. People who are in the community.
It's a damage at the end of the day. That's what they're going after. It's not. You need to understand from a hacker's point of view, they are in it for the money. In this particular case, right? They want to get as much reach. So if a channel has 1 subscriber and they go live and they start streaming this Bitcoin, the odds of people joining that live stream and kind of clicking those buttons and donating to the channel are just that much smaller, just not worth their time, which is why they typically go after the bigger channel. Look, let's be clear. The hackers know that they've got a short window of opportunity to gain as much money as possible before they get shut down. That's it. It's not a business. They know that it's not going to last forever. It's not going to last more than 48 hours. In fact, YouTube will take them out of search and discovery so quickly to try to limit the damage as much as possible so that people don't get scammed. They do this to protect people, to protect the viewers. So the reason the bigger the channel gets more of that priority is because the damage is just that much bigger. So we have to understand that it's that balancing act. It's not a one-size-fits-all, just because the damage is so different based on an audience. But the one thing we need to kind of differentiate. There's a difference between somebody hacking a channel, going onto that channel, renaming that channel, uploading live stream, changing maybe the AdSense account and getting that Bitcoin money, versus somebody creating scams and leaving comments and pretending to be you on another channel and trying to get you to engage with them on Telegram or WhatsApp. These are 2 separate sides are both on the evil side. One is just that much worse. And I just don't want to get the kind of us confused between, we're not trying to attack everything, and no, we can't. It is absolutely, spam has been a problem on the platform for a very long time, and it just got that much better. YouTube is picking up so much more, and it's evolving very, very quickly. But what happened with Linus is not a scam in terms of here is a duplicate channnal. Yeah, here is a channel that was renamed from Linus Tech to Tesla. The part that I want to kind of to raise is what we've spoken about is it's the same thing again and again and again. It's always Tesla. It's always Elon Musk. It's always a live stream. That is a pattern. And if you go into YouTube now and you put in Tesla and you live stream, there's still channels out there broadcasting the stuff.
Yes.
And that is the part that I think even Linus may have even said that himself in his kind of overall video. What we're saying to YouTube is we acknowledge that this is not a easy thing to fix. We get it. But there are certain things that programmatically, if this and this and this, surely there could be a way that is such an abnormal behavior. It just requires me to log in again.
Yeah.
And I would have no issue with that.
That would also lead to less customer service issues. Like they would have less that they would have to get involved in too if they I'll give you an example. When I used to work at a bank way back in the day before my YouTube days, we would set people up with like merchants with credit card machines, and we would give them a printout showing them how to update your credit card machine whenever it's due for an update, because those also get updates. And that way we didn't get as many calls into customer service asking them like for a step-by-step or asking one of us to go in and update it for them, because they already knew how. So like it was that additional education and that additional like preemptive step with the knowledge that if we don't do this ahead of time, it's going to create more work for us. So if I was at YouTube and I was thinking about, okay, there's all these smaller channels that don't have a direct line of contact with somebody at YouTube. How can we protect them too? Even though they might not be the main target, this could still be a potential thing that could harm their income. Like technically my channel is still fairly small, but it's my main source of income. I'm a full-time content creator. So if that went down and I didn't have somebody to get in touch with, that would very much harm my ability to pay my mortgage. So that's very important to me. So having those steps ahead of time so that I don't have to deal with trying to find somebody in customer service at YouTube who may take a couple of days or a couple of weeks, you never really know, then that would save me a lot of time and it would save them work and potentially money too, because then they're still getting ad revenue from my account because, save the accounts quicker. Yeah. And that way you don't have to deal with it.
Well, listen, I can't thank both of you guys enough for coming here on such short notice. I want to thank our sponsor today, who allows me to do these live streams on the channel, the great company StreamYard, which is exactly what we're using right now to allow us to live stream, to have all these great little layouts, to be able to put things up on screen and share screens. And if you're interested in making live streams like this, I've got links down in the description below, and you can try StreamYard for free right now. But I also want to thank Todd Beaupre, and I want to thank Renee Ritchie from YouTube for taking the time to come over and be a part of this chat. I didn't ask them to; they just did, and I hope that leaves a mark on everyone out there, and to understand how much the people they're real people that work at YouTube. And I've said it before, they work really hard, and they really do care about creators. And just because something is a problem doesn't mean that they're not trying to solve it. And one thing I've always said is YouTube is very compartmentalized, right? The thing that Todd does at YouTube is not the same thing that Renee does at YouTube, and that's not the same thing that the people who are controlling some of the security features. They have different departments like any corporation. So, to have them come here and take notes is just and talk to you guys is really fantastic. Shannon, can you tell people right now where to find you if they want to find out more information about the kind of things you talk about?
Absolutely. YouTube.com/Shannon Morse, spelled just like my name says. I don't know if it's on the screen or not, but Morse, not Morris. It's Morse, like Morse code. You can find my channel. I do security and privacy all the time for consumers and your average non-techie. So hopefully it helps. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Twitter. I'm @Snubs.
Okay, and I've got your channel link down below, and I'll actually add your Twitter handle back down there too. Leron, I have you linked down below too, but can you please tell people where they can find you across the platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having this discussion. I think it's super valuable, and the more that we talk about this kind of stuff, the more we just help each other. And at the end of the day, that is why we love the YouTube community so much. So Daniel, big shout out to you for hosting us. Finding me, just Liron Segev is my YouTube channel name, and then I'm on Twitter is probably the best thing, or LinkedIn. I'm everywhere.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Thank you again for being here today. Thank you to everyone in the chat for hanging out, asking some great questions, and being a part of this conversation. And like I said, I'm going to take everything that we talked about, wherever there was a link dropped or anything else, I'll be adding them to the description. I'll be chaptering this up, so when we talk about something in the chapters, you'll be able to find any of those links and things and find the resources that we've talked about along the way. I hope all of you have learned a little something today. I hope all of you take a little extra effort and take your own security precautions into your own hands, so that we can all kind of work a little harder to prevent potential things happening down the line, because I never want to see these kind of things happen to any creator out there. So all of you have a great day. Thank you again. Peace, people.